Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatyadeshatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Tarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Oh, Nityananda.
Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Oh, Chaitanya.
Prabhu Nityananda
Oh, Nityananda.
Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Tanya.
Prabhu Nityananda
Oh, Nityananda.
Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Prabhupada, Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Haribo! Haribo!
Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo,
Haribo! Haribo!
Nitai Gora Haribo, Haribo,
Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai!
Ah,
Jai!
Yoda Premanande.
Hari,
Hari
Hari,
Hari
Hari,
Hari Hari
Haribo!
Hari Hari Haribo.
Hare Krishna. Haribol. I'd like to welcome Anuradha Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you for tuning in. We're here with Bhakta Matt and Bhakta Adam, who I welcomed earlier. So I just want to thank all of you for coming. Hare Krishna. So here we are. We're diving in just where we left off yesterday in Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 43. So if you are able, you can follow along. Hold on, we have a message. Out in the garden and catching a few minutes. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So grateful for you to be here. Hare Krishna. Okay, so I'm gonna just do the invocation, and if you can, please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantasto Yabhadrani Vidhunoti Sahritsatam Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. Okay. 1943. Sutta Uvacha Krishna evam bhagavati manovagdrishti vrittibhi atmanyatmanam avesha nantasvasa uparamat. Sutta Goswami said, thus Bhishmadev merged himself in the Supersoul, Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with his mind, speech, sight, and actions. And thus he became silent and his breathing stopped. Purport. The stage attained by Bhishmadev while quitting his material body is called Nirvikalpa Samadhi, because he merged his self into thinking of the Lord and his mind into remembering his different activities. He chanted the glories of the Lord, and by his sight he began to see the Lord personally present before him, and thus all his activities became concentrated upon the Lord without deviation. This is the highest stage of perfection, and it is possible for everyone to attain this stage by practice of devotional service. The devotional service of the Lord consists of 9 principles of service activities. They are hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet, worshiping, praying, executing the orders, fraternizing, and fully surrendering. Any one of them or all of them are equally competent to award the desired result, but they require to be practiced persistently under the guidance of an expert devotee of the Lord. The first item, hearing, is the most important item of all, and therefore hearing of the Bhagavad Gita and later on Srimad Bhagavatam is essential for the serious candidate who wants to attain the stage of Bhishma Dev at the end. The unique situation at Bhishma Dev's time of death can be attained even though Lord Krishna may not be personally present. His words of the Bhagavad Gita or those of Srimad Bhagavatam are identical with the Lord. They are sound incarnations of the Lord, and one can fully utilize them to be entitled to attain the stage of Sri Bhishma Dev, who was one of the 8 Vasus. Every man or animal must die at a certain stage of life, but one who dies like Bhishma Dev attains perfection, and one who dies forced by the laws of nature dies like an animal. That is the difference between a man and an animal. The human form of life is especially meant for dying like Bhishma Dev. 44. Sampadyamanam ajnaya bhishmam brahmani nishkale sarve babhuvus tetushnim vyang sivadanataye. Knowing that Bhishma Dev had merged into the unlimited eternity of the Supreme Absolute, all present there became silent like birds at the end of the day. Purport. To enter into or to become merged into the unlimited eternity of the Supreme Absolute means to enter the original home of the living being. The living beings are all component parts and parcels of the Absolute Personality of Godhead, and therefore they are eternally related with Him as the servitor and the served. The Lord is served by all His parts and parcels, as the complete machine is served by its parts and parcels. Any part of the machine removed from the whole is no longer important. Similarly, any part and parcel of the Absolute detached from the service of the Lord is useless. The living beings who are in the material world are all disintegrated parts and parcels of the Supreme Whole, and they are no longer as important as the original parts and parcels. There are, however, more integrated living beings who are eternally liberated. The material energy of the Lord, called Durga Shakti, or the superintendent of the prison house, takes charge of the disintegrated parts and parcels, and thus they undergo a conditioned life under the laws of material nature. When the living being becomes conscious of this fact, he tries to go back home, back to Godhead. And thus the spiritual urge of the living being begins. This spiritual urge is called Brahma Jigyasa, or inquiry about Brahman. Principally, this Brahma Jigyasa is successful by knowledge, renunciation, and devotional service to the Lord. Jnana, or knowledge, means knowledge of everything of Brahman, the Supreme. Renunciation means detachment of material affection, and devotional service is the revival by practice of the original position of the living being. The successful living beings who are eligible to enter into the realm of the Absolute are called the Jnanis, the Yogis, and the Bhaktas. The Jnanis and Yogis enter into the impersonal rays of the Supreme, but the Bhaktas enter into the spiritual planets known as the Vaikunthas. In these spiritual planets, the Supreme Lord as Narayan predominates, and the healthy, unconditioned living beings live there by rendering loving service to the Lord in the capacity of servant, friend, parents, and fiancé. There, the unconditioned living beings enjoy life in full freedom with the Lord, whereas the impersonalist jnanis and yogis enter into the impersonal glowing effulgence of the Vaikuntha planets. The Vaikuntha planets are all self-illuminating like the sun, and the rays of the Vaikuntha planets are called the Brahmajyoti. The Brahmajyoti is spread unlimitedly, and the material world is but a covered portion of an insignificant part of the same Brahmajyoti. This covering is temporary, and therefore it is a sort of illusion. Bhishma Dev, as a pure devotee of the Lord, entered the spiritual realm in one of the Vaikuntha planets where the Lord, in his eternal form of Parthasarathi, predominates over the unconditioned living beings who are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. The love and affection which bind the Lord and devotee are exhibited in the case of Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev never forgot the Lord in his transcendental feature as the Parthasarathi, and the Lord was present personally before Bhishma Dev while he was passing to the transcendental world. That is the highest perfection of life. Tatra dandu bhaya nedur deva manavavaditaha sasangsu sadavoragyam hatpetu pushpavrishtayaha. Thereafter, both men and demigods sounded drums in honor, and the honest royal order commenced demonstrations of honor and respect. And from the sky fell showers of flowers. Purport. Bhishma Dev was respected both by the human beings and by the demigods. The human beings live on Earth and similar other planets in the Bhur and Bhuvar group of planets, but the demigods live in the Swar, or heavenly planets. And all of them know Bhishma Dev as a great warrior and devotee of the Lord. As a Mahajan, or authority, he was on the level of Brahma, Narada, and Shiva, although he was a human being. Qualification on a par with the great demigods is possible only on attainment of spiritual perfection. Thus, Bhishma Dev was known all over the universes, and during his time, interplanetary travel was affected by finer methods than the futile endeavors of mechanical spacecraft. When the distant planets were informed of the passing away of Bhishma Dev, all the inhabitants of the upper planets, as well as of the earth, dropped showers of flowers to show due respect to the departed great personality. This showering of flowers from heaven is a sign of recognition by great demigods, and it should never be compared to the decoration of a dead body. The body of Bhishma Dev lost its material effects due to being surcharged with spiritual realization, and thus the body was spiritualized as when iron becomes red hot when in contact with fire. The body of a fully self-realized soul is not, therefore, accepted as material. Special ceremonies are observed for such spiritual bodies. The respect and recognition of Bhishma Dev are never to be imitated by artificial means, as it has become a fashion to observe the so-called Jayanti ceremony for any and every common man. According to authorized Shastras, such a Jayanti ceremony for an ordinary man, however exalted he may be materially, is an offense to the Lord, because Jayanti is reserved for the day when the Lord appears on the earth. Bhishma Dev was unique in his activities, and his passing away to the kingdom of God is also unique. Tasya nirharanadini sampare tasya bhargava Yudhishthira karayit mahurtam dukhito bhavat. O descendant of Bhrigu, Shaunaka, after performing funeral rituals for the dead body of Bhishma Dev, Maharaj Yudhishthira was momentarily overtaken with grief. Purport. Bhishma Dev was not only a great family head of Maharaj Yudhishthira, but also he was a great philosopher and friend to him, his brothers, and his mother.
I'm curious, from you
Since Maharaj Pandu, the father of the 5 brothers headed by Maharaj Yudhishthira, had died,
the sense of feeling trapped in a life that you do not want, a place you do not want to stay, where opportunity is abundant elsewhere, and you remain trapped by circumstance. I feel like...
Okay. I'm going to start the purport over. Bhishma Dev was not only a great family head of Maharaj Yudhishthira, but also he was a great philosopher and friend to him, his brothers, and his mother. Since Maharaj Pandu, the father of the 5 brothers headed by Maharaj Yudhisthira, had died, Bhishma Dev was the most affectionate grandfather of the Pandavas and caretaker of the widow daughter-in-law Kunti Devi. Although Maharaj Dhritarashtra, the elder uncle of Maharaj Yudhisthira, was there to look after them, his affection was more on the side of his 100 sons headed by Duryodhana. Ultimately, a colossal clique was fabricated to deprive the 5 fatherless brothers of the rightful claim of the kingdom of Hastinapur. There was great intrigue common in imperial palaces, and the 5 brothers were exiled to the wilderness. But Bhishma Dev was always a sincerely sympathetic well-wisher, grandfather, friend, and philosopher to Maharaj Yudhisthira, even up to the last moment of his life. He died very happily by seeing Maharaj Yudhisthira to the throne. Otherwise, he would have long ago quitted his material body. Instead of suffering agony over the undue sufferings of the Pandavas, he was simply waiting for the opportune moment, because he was sure and certain that the sons of Pandu would come out victorious in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, as his lordship Sri Krishna was their protector. As a devotee of the Lord, he knew that the Lord's devotee cannot be vanquished at any time. Maharaj Yudhisthira was quite aware of all these good wishes of Bhishma Dev, and therefore he must have been feeling the great separation. He was sorry for the separation of a great soul, and not for the material body which Bhishma Dev relinquished. The funeral ceremony was a necessary duty, although Bhishma Dev was a liberated soul. Since Bhishma Dev was without issue, the eldest grandson, namely Maharaj Yudhisthira, was the rightful person to perform this ceremony. It was a great boon to Bhishma Dev that an equally great son of the family undertook the last rites of a great man. Hare Krishna. Tushtuvo munayo hrishta krishnam tadguya namavi tataste krishna hridaya swashraman prayayu punaha. All the great sages then glorified Lord Sri Krishna, who was present there, by confidential Vedic hymns. Then all of them returned to their respective hermitages, bearing always Lord Krishna within their hearts. Purport. The devotees of the Lord are always in the heart of the Lord, and the Lord is always in the hearts of the devotees. That is the sweet relation between the Lord and his devotees. Due to unalloyed love and devotion for the Lord, the devotees always see him within themselves, and the Lord also, although he has nothing to do and nothing to aspire to, is always busy in attending to the welfare of his devotees. For the ordinary living beings, the law of nature is there for all actions and reactions, but he is always anxious to put his devotees on the right path. The devotees, therefore, are under the direct care of the Lord. And the Lord also voluntarily puts himself under the care of his devotees only. So all the sages, headed by Vyasadeva, were devotees of the Lord, and therefore they chanted the Vedic hymns after the funeral ceremony just to please the Lord, who was present there personally. All the Vedic hymns are chanted to please Lord Krishna. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15. All the Vedas, Upanishads, Vedanta, and so on are seeking him only, and all hymns are for glorifying him only. The sages, therefore, performed the exact acts suitable for the purpose, and they happily departed for their respective hermitages. Sato Yudhisthiro Gatva Saha Krishna Gajavayam Pitaram Shantvayam Asa Gandharim Cha Tapasvinim. Thereafter, Maharaj Yudhisthira at once went to his capital, Hastinapur, accompanied by Lord Sri Krishna, and there he consoled his uncle and aunt, Gandhari, who was an ascetic. Purport. Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, the father and the mother of Duryodhana and his brothers, were the elder uncle and aunt of Maharaj Yudhisthira. After the battle of Kurukshetra, the celebrated couple, having lost their sons and grandsons, were under the care of Maharaj Yudhisthira. They were passing their days in great agony over such a heavy loss of life and were practically living the life of ascetics. The death news of Bhishma Dev, uncle of Dhritarashtra, was another great shock for the king and the queen, and therefore they required solace from Maharaj Yudhisthira. Maharaj Yudhisthira was conscious of his duty, and he at once hurried to the spot with Lord Krishna and satisfied the bereaved Dhritarashtra with kind words, from both himself and the Lord also. Gandhari was a powerful ascetic, although she was living the life of a faithful wife and a kind mother. It is said that Gandhari also voluntarily closed her eyes because of the blindness of her husband. A wife's duty is to follow the husband cent per cent, and Gandhari was so true to her husband that she followed him even in his perpetual blindness. Therefore, in her actions, she was a great ascetic. Besides that, the shock she suffered because of the wholesale killing of her 100 sons and her grandsons also was certainly too much for a woman. But she suffered all this just like an ascetic. Gandhari, although a woman, is no less than Bhishma Dev in character. They are both remarkable personalities in the Mahabharata. Pitrachanamato Raja Vasudeva-numoditaha Chakara Rajam Dharmena Pitrapaithamaham Davu. After this, the great religious king, Maharaj Yudhisthira, executed the royal power in the kingdom strictly according to the codes and royal principles approved by his uncle and confirmed by Lord Sri Krishna. Purport. Maharaj Yudhisthira is not a mere tax collector. He was always conscious of his duty as a king, which is no less than that of a father or spiritual master. The king is to see to the welfare of the citizens from all angles of social, political, economic, and spiritual upliftment. The king must know that human life is meant for liberating the encaged soul from the bondage of material conditions. And therefore his duty is to see that the citizens are properly looked after to attain this highest stage of perfection. Maharaj Yudhisthira followed these principles strictly, as will be seen from the next chapter. Not only did he follow the principles, but he also got approval from his old uncle, who was experienced in political affairs. And that was also confirmed by Lord Krishna, the speaker of the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. Maharaj Yudhisthira is the ideal monarch, and monarchy under a trained king like Maharaj Yudhisthira is by far the most superior form of government, superior to modern republics or governments of the people by the people. The mass of people, especially in this age of Kali, are all born Shudras, basically low-born, ill-trained, unfortunate, and badly associated. They themselves do not know the highest perfectional aim of life. Therefore, votes cast by them actually have no value, and thus persons elected by such irresponsible votes cannot be responsible representatives like Maharaj Yudhisthira. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 9th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Passing Away of Bhishma Dev in the Presence of Lord Krishna. Sadhu, sadhu. Woo! Hare Krishna. Are there any discussion points at this point? And I don't know if Anuradha Mataji was talking to me. It sounded like she was just unmuted, so I muted her, and then she left. But she said she was only staying for a little bit, so hopefully I didn't cut her off when she was trying to say something. Hare Krishna. So anyway, any points, reflections, appreciations, chastisements? Well, that was a really nice chapter, actually. The teachings of Bhishma Dev on his deathbed, very powerful, very deep.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's kind of nice coming back to hearing this chapter about Bhishma Dev because he's like, I don't know, he's like the embodiment of what it means to be like a pure devotee, like just everything about him. I mean, because when I read the Mahabharata, like it took me like 6 months to read the Mahabharata 'cause it's like it's pretty big. But like just you know, reading about Bhishma Dev and his relationship with his nephews, the Pandavas, was just like kind of like, the ideal relationship an uncle would have with his nephews. And yeah, I mean, everything that Prabhupada said in the purport was just like, because it's like, it's difficult just, I mean, especially living here in LA, it's like, I try to just, kind of not have like a dualistic mindset, like not kind of live in a sense of duality, you know what I mean? Not like right or wrong or left or right or anything like that. But sometimes it just feels like people can always like have a tendency to like start, you know, leaning towards these like political views, and it's like a duality thing, this us versus them, And so it's like reading this, I feel like gives me some sense of like relief, because it's like, okay, this what's spoken here is beyond the duality of this world. It's like what what the real purpose of life is. And because everything I feel like people are quarreling over in this life is of a material nature. It's not really like it's not really spiritual. I mean, to some degree it might be, but it's really, it just doesn't feel like it ultimately. um but yeah, I really like this purport and this chapter with Bhishma Dev, because he's like, um yeah, I remember reading about him in the Mahabharata, and yeah, he's like, very, he's like a character I really look up to in there.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing, Prabhuji. Yeah, yeah. We're appreciating what you're sharing also because, well, there's this nice example that Prabhupada gives. He's talking about the Lord's energy, specifically like Maya Shakti. There's the Maha Maya and the Yoga Maya, but the Maya energy is one and the same. And basically, the example Prabhupada gives is like it's just like electricity, like the power of electricity. Whenever you like you connect you have an air conditioning unit. You can use the energy to cool, or you can use it to heat, and like basically transforming that energy for cold or for hot, but it's the same energy that's being used. And I like that example because it kind of, like you're saying, like it brings you out of like the dualistic way of seeing things, and like we tap into the underlying spiritual current that is behind all of it, you could say. And another thing is about that is actually Bhishma Dev. One thing I'm also appreciating about hearing about him is, he wasn't a sannyasi. He was a great warrior, and he was very much in the world, and living amongst people and engaging in even politics and family interactions and work life and all these different things. But at the same time, he was just really he was a pure devotee, like you're saying. But he was like a very powerful yogi. He had like the mystic siddhi of being able to choose when to leave his body. And to me, it's just so cool to see his example of being engaged in the world in so many ways, but still, having such a powerful, like yogic, uh, personality. I mean, he's a pure devotee. So anyway, just kind of sharing, just kind of bouncing off what you're saying, and it's good to. And I was thinking about living in the city, even where I'm at here in Athens. It's a small town, but it's a lot of students and a lot kind of going on. It's kind of got a bit of hustle and bustle for its size, and yeah, it's easy to be out there or like get caught up in what's going on, or view it as like we could like view ourselves as separate, like us and them, or like, okay, this is Krishna consciousness, and that's Maya, and kind of like develop like kind of a duality, a dualistic way of looking at it. But it's actually like maybe considered a more advanced viewpoint to actually be able to see Krishna everywhere, and to see Krishna in the heart of the living entities, and to see, like that verse in Bhagavad Gita, Daiviyesha Gunamayi Mama Maya, that Krishna says, this divine energy of mine, my Maya. So how intimately connected Maya is with Krishna, and being able to see both, here, there, everywhere in the material world. And so, anyway, just appreciating that topic you're sharing.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say that because like I like that analogy you used, like the energy. Um, because like, everything comes from Krishna, everything that we see, everything like every single thing that exists is an expansion of Krishna, you know. So I remember I was like, I think it was like a year ago or a year to 2 years ago. I was talking to this one devotee from the temple here in LA, and he said like even people that kind of the people that are have a demoniac nature, that even comes from Krishna, because everything comes from Krishna. So like he said something that like I don't, I wouldn't say that's who Krishna is, but there's that dark side that comes from Krishna too, because everything comes from Krishna. So it's there for a reason, and whatever reason that is to serve Krishna's purpose is like it's there. And I guess I'm learning to appreciate it in a way that like feels like sort of unconventional. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to just, little by little wrap my head around it in some way, but not completely, because I don't feel like I can ever completely understand Krishna or even Radha for that matter. But I'm learning to appreciate it more and more, you know.
Right. Yeah, it reminds me of uh, in Ishopanishad, all forms of incompletedness are due to incomplete knowledge of the complete whole. And I'm thinking of this example that Prabhupada gives. Basically, like Krishna is like the sun, and then like like ignorance is like darkness, and basically where there's the sun, there cannot be darkness. So it's like, yeah, there ultimately everything's coming from Krishna, but there is a way of understanding, all different things, even like the dark things in the material world. There's a way of, we can see there, we can, there is a connection to Krishna, and that basically like, you can see it for what it is, it may be superficially like some dark thing, but somehow or other we become more advanced, we can see that its connection with Krishna, and then there is really ultimately no darkness, just like you're saying, there's a purpose behind it. Even we read, I think it was yesterday or the day before, on the Battle of Kurukshetra, there were pure devotees present, like Bhishma Dev and the Pandavas, but actually everybody present on the battlefield attained the same result. They all basically attain their eternal spiritual forms after death, and it was because Lord Krishna was there, and yeah, even the one like Duryodhana, like who they were not functioning as pure devotees at all, but because of how merciful the Lord is, just the fact that they're even there, they got the same destination as the pure devotees. And so, yeah, it's like Prabhupada says, pure devotees are very difficult to understand, and what speak of Krishna, even Krishna can't fully understand Krishna. And if anybody was to actually completely understand Krishna, well, then immediately they wouldn't understand Krishna completely, because Krishna is always expanding also. So like, it's nice to you know, like be in a mood of appreciation, inclusivity, and when we're connected with Krishna, uh, yeah, like you're saying, it's we see beyond the duality. Yeah. So anyway, Hare Krishna. Yeah. Appreciate your points. Bogdanam, you want to share anything?
I think I'm kind of fresh out.
Fresh out?
Fresh out. Just say.
That's all right. Appreciate you hearing. We heard today. Prabhupada said the most important thing is hearing.
Yeah.
That was nice to hear.
Yeah.
Krishna. Well, yep. I mean, it's pretty much stopping time. So if there's any other points from you guys, we can take them. Otherwise, that's a good stopping point. Start chapter 10 tomorrow.
I appreciate this. This was like refreshing. I'm gonna see if like I can adjust my work schedule to, make these Zoom meetings more often. Yeah, because I would like to go out there and visit Athens sometime, but I'm trying to save up money and get my finances organized. And little by little, I'm in no rush. I mean, we've been at it for like billions and trillions of years, so what's another day?
Right. Yeah, and the semester's about to end here, and
Oh, okay.
it's really nice here when the weather's nice and school is in session.
Mhm.
Whenever school's not in session, it's not anywhere near the same. Still nice, but yeah, there's so many students here. So nice for Harinam, and
Yeah. When school's not in session, is it like a ghost town?
well, my only experience of it so far has been spring break, and compared to how it normally is, it could be said like a ghost town. But there's still people around, but not that many.
I feel like it would be nice for me to just go out there for association or and stuff, even if it's like slow, because out here in LA, it's like, man, it's just constant out here, especially here in downtown. So it's like, I think even going out there for a week once in a while, it'd be nice just to kind of, have that reset, to really, detach from this, like, you know, material life. And I mean, just even before this, before I hopped on the Zoom, like, speaking of dualities, I was watching the Addams Family on Netflix. And I was like, and I've never watched the Addams Family growing up, but you know how like there's a humor rasa that kind of permeates every. I heard of something like that, that the humor energy of Krishna, the humor rasa. I don't know, something like, I don't think call it a rasa, but humor something at like potency of Krishna like permeates everything. And I never was into the Addams Family growing up. I never was into that show, but they have like the live action version of the show on Netflix. It's kind of new, I think. They got like two seasons. As I was watching, I was like, oh, I can see why people watch this. It's even though the humor is kind of dark, it's kind of funny in a way. But I'm like, I can't. I wouldn't be able to like complete. I wouldn't be able to like just identify with it, like on a personal level. But I like, or to that degree, you know what I mean. But like, I was like, okay, this is enough of this. Now I need to switch. I need to get some Krishna consciousness. Because sometimes I feel like when I'm, that's one of the reasons why like I feel like I couldn't go to I feel like it's too difficult for me to go to the temple because I feel like even going to the temple, I feel like I'm engaging like in duality. I'm not saying going to the temple is a bad thing, but it's like, you know what I mean? It's like I can't, I don't know. It's like I have to be somewhere in the middle, you know what I mean? Where I can still like practice Krishna consciousness on my own, but like in a way that doesn't feel like it's leaning too left or right, like I don't know, it's weird. That's why I was like, okay, let me get a bit of Adam's Family before I before I get into this. reading of the Shastras, but I don't know. It's like I don't know how to explain
Yeah,
it.
I know what you mean. I can tell you from my own experience, sometimes, at least for me, I tend to put pressure on myself in certain situations. And if I'm putting too much pressure on myself, then my tendency is to like, it makes devotional service more difficult. And then in another situation where maybe I'm not having that pressure, and then it's like I naturally gravitate towards devotional service more. And like in my experience, sometimes it's like separation makes the heart grow fonder. If at least I've experienced for myself. Sometimes it's like living in the temple, constantly being there. And I've observed also in others. Like we tend to like familiarity breeds contempt, as they say. And we may be there and at the temple, where if we're it just depends on the individual. But I've experienced like I went out and started working, and I was living outside of the temple, and like when I was in the temple, I was like kind of getting distracted by really like stupid little things. And then whenever I was outside of the temple and didn't have all the like external support of like automatic program going on, the program's going on automatically in the temple. You're surrounded by devotees. Krishna's there directly, indirectly, in all kinds of ways. And then I went from that to being outside, where it was like, well, it's just me. And then I'm like taking care of material responsibilities. And like when I was focusing on working and stuff, in the back of my mind, it was like, I really want to be chanting. I want to be doing devotional service. So like any little moment I would just naturally go to chanting, and it wasn't like pressured. It was like that's what I just naturally wanted to do. So anyway, it depends on us, like it takes some self-awareness to be able to like be real with oneself and see where one is at, and then to understand the balance of how we can practice. And me and my friend, like you're talking about watching Addams Family. Sometimes we call that like media release. You're like, you're like working and maybe like whatever, chanting, doing some sadhana, doing, hitting it, and as media release, sometimes it's like a channel for whatever, just like kind of release from all the pressures of whatever it is we're doing. And sometimes it's not really like the end of the world if somebody watches something or whatever, But also, in my experience, just as an aspiring devotee, it's like sometimes, or over time, it's like, let me just maybe watch this a little less. Or like, instead of like, I mean, for myself, like it came to the point where it's like, okay, you're kind of hitting the balance here of like, okay, I chant my 16 rounds. I still maintain vegetarian diet. I do offer everything to Krishna. And it's like at the end of the day, it's like, I just wind down with watching, like, sometimes I would get like real into like watching some documentary about like megalithic structures or something. Like, what's going on, the different archaeological discoveries in Peru and these different places, and like, yeah, it's kind of fun. I do like learning about stuff, and then trying to also like, it's fun to read Shastra and then see like, these things, and then try to find any connection with them. But sometimes maybe you can overdo it. It's not really about preaching. It's not. It's just kind of like, we all have our Maya, our things, But then it's like, sometimes that's okay, but over time it's like, we don't want to get too stuck, and then eventually it's like, well, you know what? I tend to always waste this amount of time, and especially if I don't always chant my rounds or something, it's like, yeah, you know what? Let me just chant instead or something, and at least for me personally, like slowly over time, like Krishna's reciprocating with the efforts and actually, um, you know, uh, making one feel happier and genuinely, we're not meant to like artificially renounce, stuff. So it's like, anyway, I'm just sharing some thoughts on the topic. Just kind of like, it depends on the individual, but sometimes sometimes we just have to do what we have to do to try to find our own personal balance. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I would always definitely put the encouragement in there. It's like, if I can do like 1% more than I did yesterday, that's always good. Trying to move in a direction towards Krishna. What more could you ask? Krishna's very merciful. He understands. It's not meant to be like some military, like military camp, spiritual practice, something. Anyway.
I stayed at a temple one time where there was this one devotee from Mayapur, and the way he described the temple there, their routine was like, he said it was like the military. I was like, oh my goodness, that is like the military. I probably would not survive in that temple. It's just, it was just too much for me. And then like, and then it was, because sometimes I feel like when there's like, when I don't know, a person can like engage in like an extreme, it seems like they can, you know, like kind of just, I don't know, it's just weird how like there's a balance, because then like it's almost like the laws of physics, or laws of nature, like um the it seems like people can start to like engage in certain things or do certain things or even eat certain things, and not meat of course, but like the devotee, like like eat baked foods from a grocery store, that aren't baked by a devotee or something like that, because it's like kind of like that balance of just getting the release from just being so like you know tightly strict and bound up by these principles. And so that's where I guess I'm trying to not take the mercy of the Lord for granted, where like okay, this is Kali Yuga. I don't think I'm gonna be able to be perfect in this age, because I'm not exempt from the effects or the symptoms of this age. So I'm trying to find that sort of balance of being like imperfectly perfect or something like that. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's where I'm kind of at right now. And I'm just kind of grateful. My roommate, the one that this is his place, he's kind of working with me now, because I think he sees I'm making an effort, paying him the rent he's asking for and all that, even though it was like kind of an increase from before. But I feel like it's reasonable, and I feel like he's being more reasonable with me. So now we're working. Like I kind of appreciate now that even though we've known each other for like a couple years now, or a little over a couple years, like now he's working with me, like kind of building like a little sanctuary here to like because I remember like I've always been like health conscious since I was a teenager. And one of the things I like that Prabhupada, when he was talking about like the four things, is first health, then sadhana, then seva, then reading. Like he said health before sadhana, which like which was, I try not to get like too much of an obsession with, what I mean, because obsessions are not great either. But like since I've been health conscious since I was younger, like I like to focus on that health part, because I really feel that like, yeah, without the health really in optimal degree, at an optimal degree, then it makes the sadhana a little more challenging, I think. I mean, the sadhana is already kind of challenging on its own, because it's like Maya, the influence of Maya. But like there's so many things I about health that I learned from my dad, because he was a NASA scientist for 30 years. So I think I'm glad my roommate's like starting to see the Prabhu, that this is his place. I mean, he's not here now. He travels a lot, but I'm kind of grateful that like he's kind of seeing like that I'm this. I try to like, I'm trying to build a more health conscious environment here. And my roommates, I have a good roommate now. Like he's very clean, and oh my goodness, he cleaned. And because before I was kind of clean, I felt like I was doing a little more cleaning than everybody else here, or considerably more cleaning. And I don't know, because these other Prabhus are from another country or something like that. Maybe they're not used to a certain level of cleanliness, But this other Prabhu, he's also from another country. Like he started cleaning. It motivated me to clean more. So yesterday I was like cleaning is like almost like trying to clean like every inch of this place, and laundry room, like dusting and just like getting all this old stuff out. Like it's like this is great because I feel like when I can make this, and he's talking about getting like an area rug, like I want to see what we get, like just to make this place more like, like there more flow of prana and, energy that can really facilitate a good sadhana space. You know what I mean? And I'm really looking forward to that, because I feel like the health is like really important nowadays.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's nice building a sacred space. Yeah, I personally like doing that myself. But yeah, it's true. Yeah, health sadhana seva. How can you have good sadhana if you don't have good health? And and then on top of that, if you don't have good health or sadhana, then how can you do seva? So it is very important. You know, just it's kind of our responsibility to find the balance with everything. Personally, what we can do on each level, and offer it to Krishna. Krishna accepts it, appreciates it. What I've been meditating on is, um, just genuinely making offerings with affection to Krishna. As regulated as I can be, but even if it's slightly irregular or whatever, but still, just being in that space of like, you know, awareness of the intention and where it's coming from. There's a big difference between making an offering like out of fear, like, oh, if I don't chant my 16 rounds, then I'm gonna fail, or whatever, or something like that, or if I don't, as opposed to just like, like Krishna's pretty cool. I like Krishna. And it's like, actually, I would like to be more connected with Krishna, and then just, what, I know the process is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, and just offering in that mood is different. And then I think the more we tap into that mood, then, well, it depends. It depends on the individual. Some people, like, they need the strict discipline, and then the discipline and the like Vaidhi Bhakti will bring the more deeper feelings. But sometimes if we've struggled to get regulated, then we have to generate that inspiration from the heart, because sometimes it's said that by doing it the inspiration will come, and that's true. But if we're having trouble doing it, like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? It's like, just do it mechanically. Generally, is the process to practice Vaidhi Bhakti can be done in a mechanical way, and then by doing that, it takes us to deeper levels of Krishna consciousness. But also, I've experienced being very much regulated in Vaidhi Bhakti, and then after like a long time of doing like that as a brahmachari, then Krishna was pushing me to change what I was doing, and showing me that I was taking too much shelter of the externals, of the schedule, of the whatever external practice. And so then I was forced to, by circumstance, to change it, to change the way I was approaching Krishna consciousness. And then actually, Krishna's given me some realizations, at least that worked for me, about, where I'm actually at, and how to, what level of Krishna consciousness I can practice in a sustainable way. And at some point we all have to kind of like, be real about that and find our balance. If we can, remain very regular and practice with feeling, that's awesome. Sometimes I can practice with more feeling somehow when I'm less regulated. Or sometimes it's like a dance, sometimes for some people. And some people, sometimes they need to really feel it before they can actually get solid into a regular practice. So it's dynamic anyway. And there's the general application for people, people in general. In general, it is recommended to do the mechanical process, and then, the deeper flavors will come. And, but that's why this is one aspect and reason why we have a spiritual master. Could help guide us personally. He could say, for you, actually, you should do like this. And for you, you need to do it like this. But you do it like this way. So anyway, like one time I used to pick up airport, devotees from the airport and drop them off at New Vrindavan. That was like one of my main services at one time. And I would go pick up like all kinds of cool like senior devotees and different devotees and pick them up and then drive them to New Vrindavan, and then when they're leaving, drive them back. And one devotee I got to pick up and drop off was Guru Das Prabhu. And I picked up him and Eklavya Prabhu, who is now Sri Krishna Chaitanya Swami, I think. And back then he was brahmachari, and I picked up both of them, and then it was a really good association. And then I brought Guru Das back to the airport a couple days later, and I remember he was asking me like about myself and what I did before I joined the temple, and I was telling him about working on my grandfather's farm and this and that, and then he was like kind of, the main message he was kind of like sharing with me was that there's room for individuality in Krishna consciousness. We're not really meant to be, just fill a template of what you're supposed to be, We're meant to be individuals, dynamic. Krishna.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway. Any other points?
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That was at the end, what you said, Guru Das. It's really refreshing to hear that. It really is. 'Cause sometimes I was just growing up feeling like I'm like freaking weird. Like I just felt weird. I didn't have that many friends, and I'm like, I mean, I had some friends, especially in high school, but like, I always felt like kind of an outcast in a little bit of a way. And so the individuality thing with Guru Das is kind of like refreshing to hear, because it's like, okay, there's some reason why Krishna not only gave me this body, but this mind too, because this mind is also part of the body. So this is like, because sometimes I make decisions, I'm like, why did I say that? Or why did I do that? Like, I felt like I wasn't even really in control, like almost like Krishna was in control, like he influenced me somehow to feel a certain way about something. Like, because I look back, I'm like, why, So I like what you said at the end, like about the
Yeah.
individuality.
Yeah, and you're a devotee, It's natural for you to not feel like you fit in a society of non-devotees. It's natural. Yeah. My spiritual master told me, you are a born devotee. I was like a devotee born in a family of non-devotees. And I always felt like that. Yeah. 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 But anyway. Yeah. Actually, that was the main thing that made me want to stay with devotees is just the connection I felt with the devotees. I felt like I was having more love with the devotees than I had my own family, the way they treated me and everything about Krishna consciousness. To me, pretty much everything about Krishna consciousness was just cool. Like kirtan. I remember like when I first was introduced to kirtan, I was like, man, this is like the coolest way to pray. And japa I really liked. I understood the concept of like transcendental sound, and to me it was like, yeah, like this is cool, man. Like this is fun to me. Like like let's see, let's explore and see how deep we can go here. Yeah, it made sense. It actually makes a lot more sense to me than just working and dying.
Yeah.
Basically, it's
Working,
just a rat
existing, and
race.
dying. Yeah.
It's like such an unfulfilling life. I mean, I couldn't imagine like life without Krishna consciousness would. When I was younger, yeah, I enjoyed certain specific things, but as time goes on and goes on and goes on, it's like, uh, how long can you like just enjoy the same kind of things? Gets old eventually. The car gets old. Relationships change, people change, your body changes, everything, mind, taste buds. It's like I used to love something, eat a specific thing, and then over time, it's like, you know what? I just I don't even want it anymore. See, everything's like that. Yeah, but yeah, to me at this point, I mean, I'm not anywhere near a perfect practitioner, but just a little bit that I've tried, the experience has been like so stark of the difference, between spiritual activity, chanting Hare Krishna, associating with devotees, and just not. It's like, psh. If chanting Hare Krishna is wrong, I don't want to be right at this point. See. Anyway, but I do believe I remember when I first came to Krishna consciousness, I joined a New Vrindavan, and I could see like some stuff like, I started immediately reading Prabhupada's books, and as soon as I understood 16 rounds was the mission, I just immediately started doing it, and more, because I had the time and space and ability. I would chant much more than 16 rounds, and I was experimenting with my chanting. I would take a couple days. One time I took like 2 weeks, and I just was chanting as much as possible, and I stopped counting on the beads. I just went by the hour. And my standard, at least for those 2 weeks, was I'd sit in my room in lotus positioned, and I would chant for like 10 to 12 hours straight, like all day long. And I was really just like trying to hear it and just trying to really tap in. And after 2 weeks, I lived at my grandma's house. After 2 weeks, my grandma was like, I think you need to go back to New Vrindavan. Like, it was funny. At first, she told me not to go, and she was all scared. And I went anyway. And then I came back, and all I was doing was chanting Hare Krishna all day long. And then after 2 weeks, she was like, yeah, I think you should go back. She said, I think you belong there. And I was like, all right. But anyway, yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. But, oh yeah, when I first was coming, I was reading Prabhupada's books. I started chanting, and then I could see like the different things. I really liked Prabhupada's philosophy. I really liked the practice. I understood, and I accepted, Krishna, God as a person, and I really wanted to develop my personal relationship with God. But also, I saw like weird stuff too, like in the community, like devotees. I'm reading Prabhupada's books, and Prabhupada's saying you should not do this and you should not do that. And I was like, well, this guy's doing that, and this guy's doing that. And I could see like the good, like, and I could see like the riskiness in some ways. But I could I perceived that it's potentially the best thing. Like the the potential for Krishna consciousness to be the absolute best thing is there. So I decided, yeah, I'll go with the good thing that I'm seeing and pursue that, despite whatever weird or bad thing I was also seeing that was kind of coming with it in terms of with other people or the community and this and that. To me, the good outweighed the bad or the potential.
Well, because everything in this age is gonna be tainted to some degree, I feel like, because of, you know, just the astrological nature of this age that we live in. So that's why I feel like I'm trying to, um, you know, maybe just let that mercy of the Lord flow through me, and seeing that, like, okay, this person is not perfect, but that's just, comes with, the nature of this age that we live in. You know what I mean? Because everybody's affected by this age. You know what I mean? Just has that effect. I mean, we can't avoid it. The age of Kali. So it's like that's why I'm trying to learn more and more not to, like, take anything like really too personally. You know, because most of the time people are not. I mean, first of all, you got to think of all the things people's bodies are exposed to in the first place. Materially, chemically, and all that. With what's in the food and everything. So it's like, I mean, first of all, people like are not can not be spiritually conscious or aware, but materially also to some degree because they're not educated, or they don't have a father that studies at NASA and reads thousands of books in his life. But like, I like what you talked about, like the chanting, because I feel like what I'm trying to do here and like focusing on the health before the sadhanas, I'm trying to build a space here to do something like that where I can eventually chant at least 6 to 8 hours a day. That's what I'm really trying to do, is like really build a space here where I can get in a routine of chanting at least somewhere like 6 to 8 hours a day. So that's like my ultimate goal, because I feel like that will, because I mean, that's like the only thing that I feel like is, really gonna purify my consciousness. I mean, that's what the chanting's for, is for purifying the spirit and the consciousness. But I mean, that's what's gonna also help me, like, keep me grounded in this age, because there's just so much influence, especially here in the city. With the energy in Hollywood and all that. It's just it's there's so much. It's pretty intense. But it's like I know if I can work, and I think when I feel like the Lord knows our hearts because He's there. Obviously, He's there as Paramatma. So I think He's. Sometimes I feel like, oh, I don't get what I want right away, but I know it's like a slow process. Like I think, like, the mercy of Radha, it's like slowly giving me little by little every day. You know what I mean? But not all at once. So it's like, but it's like a give and take. But yeah, like, and I like you were saying, like how that we're born devotee. Like, and I think I felt like that ever since I was a child. Like that's why I think I've always felt drawn to India for some reason, like, because I always felt like there was something like spiritual about, the country of India. I mean, my sister's best friend growing up was, Indian too. But like, I was just always skeptical because of, Hinduism and all these different worship of demigods. And I was like, okay, this is Krishna consciousness. This is the real Dharma of India. This is what I think what's been calling for my heart. I just didn't know what it was until I really prayed. Until like I really prayed for it like 2.5 years ago when I was introduced, like I would say reintroduced to Krishna consciousness, because I've been going at it for lifetimes, I'm pretty sure, but like first time I was introduced to it in this lifetime was like 2.5 years ago. But I think that was after like on my knees praying, like just crying out to higher power, the supreme. At the time I didn't have a name for it because I was just not religious, and But I knew it was there. I just didn't know what it was. I didn't know where, like, I didn't know it was Krishna consciousness. I just knew it was there, but I was just like really on my knees, like praying until like, a devotee from visiting from Utah, like came here and was doing preaching work, was the one that reached out to me here at a college. I mean, I wasn't going to college, I was just working at the college, but you know, I was like, I ended up going to work that day, and I was like, that's the best late start for work that I had because it was worth it. I was just like, it was good. It was what I was searching for.
Very nice. Yeah, thank you for sharing, Prabhuji. Yeah. I think my phone's actually running low here. Might die soon, and so I think maybe we'll conclude here. Yeah, really appreciate the conversation and the sharing. I appreciate you coming, and Bhakta Adam is still here. Appreciate Bhakta Adam hearing
Hari,
in. Buddy Bowl.
Hari.
You have you have Bhakta? Is it Bhakta Milo with you? Is that Milo?
Dr. Milo?
Is your dog's name Milo?
Yeah, well, yeah, hang on. Are you seeing him?
Huh?
Are you seeing him or something? My
No,
camera's off.
I was just wondering if
He's not with
Bhakta
me.
Milo was
Well,
also hearing.
he's here, yeah. He's not
He's
hearing.
in
I
the
wish he was
hearing
hearing.
process. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Oh yeah,
Hari.
Haribo. Anyway, appreciate you tuning in and hearing, and appreciate you sharing, Matt. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end it. I don't want to go too long here, but yeah, nectar. Hopefully, usually I was an hour later than usual today, but usually I'm earlier than that. I think for you it would be like 2:30 p.m., right? Something like that.
over here. I think because I'm on Pacific time, it's 5 o'clock right now, so it'd have been like 3:30.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think normally it's 2:30 for you. I started
yeah,
an hour late today.
yeah. So it's 3:30 today.
Right.
Yeah,
But yeah, just appreciate any of your association we can get. And yeah, I hope you do come visit sometime. It is very much peaceful here. The specific, um, like the temple, it's kind of like a little mini monastery. Just me here right now. It's very peaceful. Like if you listen, you can't hear anything. And then yeah,
like the opposite of here.
yeah, and the Sankirtan is top notch. The people are nice, and this place is nestled in surrounded by awesome state parks and trails and waterfalls and caves and all kinds of stuff. Like you can easily just go into nature, and then
Nice.
it'd be good for like retreats.
That's what I want to do. I want to treat it like a retreat, like go out there for like a week because I'm a nature person. I love the outdoors. So I'm like, I feel a little bit out of my element when I'm living here, especially in a high rise in downtown. I'm just like, I spent like $250 on this grounding sheet from Australia, like just because we're so high up off the ground. When I noticed my sleep was getting off here, and
Mm.
also I was just real, experimenting, rotating my bed, pointing at east or southwest or something, trying to keep it away from north because I know pointing north is not good. But I got a grounding sheet which is made of like the 30% of the fibers on the sheet are made of stainless steel. Because I bought this other one on Amazon, but I ended up returning it because the silver ends up oxidizing over time and doesn't have as much conductivity. And it was only 10% silver fibers, but it's one I got from this Australian-based company. Like it's like 30% stainless steel fiber so they don't oxidize. And I'm like, my sleep I noticed has gone a lot better, like a lot. And it plugs in the grounding port on the wall. Like it has a cord, it has its own cord that plugs in the sheet and it plugs into the grounding, just the grounding port on the wall. And I feel it right away, almost as if I'm like walking barefoot. Because I could feel the grounding effect when I walked on barefoot outside. I could feel I could just feel it because had a sensitive nervous system when I was a child, like, sensitive to light and sound. So like, since I've been sleeping on this sheet, it's like I notice a big difference. But going out in nature's still doesn't compare to nature, like, because nature hasn't, refreshes the eyes too. You know what I mean? Just seeing, nature and going out. Like sometimes I'll go to the arboretum here, or even State Park is enough too. It's like right next to downtown, but yeah, I'm looking forward to like going out there sometime in the near future because
Absolutely. Yeah, we can make it like a retreat, like have spiritual programs going on, and go out in nature, do Harinam. Yeah, definitely. Be fun.
sounds good.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yay.
Right.
Vanchakalpatarubhishcha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha anantakoti vaishnavrinda ki jai.
Yay.
Right.
Haribol. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end it here. I think my phone's going to die anyway, so really appreciate it. Appreciate your association. And
Likewise.
yeah, hopefully maybe we'll see you soon.
Sounds good.
Haribol Bhakta E.
Haribol. Thank you.
Haribol. We'll see you hopefully tomorrow.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare.